being in the right frequency, being in all of that, at the end of the day, it is trusting God. That's it. You need to remember, you are not God. You can call it God, you cannot call it universe, whatever. That's why I said, in my situation, we don't believe you need to be enough.
Hello and welcome to Delusional. I'm your host, Michelle Coyle. I'm here with Maria Kathleen Tan. Maria, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am known as the Money Multiplier. And before that, people have called me so many names, Miracle Maria, Money Magic Maria. And it is because I am so good. I'm that good at helping my clients, my audience, even different businesses, find what I call the hidden money layers and what you're already doing and lead with that. And of course, create a crazy amount, delusional amount of not just money, but success and growth.
We love delusional money around here, and I'm so excited to have you on the show because this is one of the biggest limiting beliefs and one of the biggest blocks that we see. And we've had lots of people on the show that were, rags to riches success stories. But I talk to people all the time every day who say, oh, you help people make lots of money, but of course they must have come from money, or they must, like they had a leg up somehow and somebody like me could never make money. And I'm telling them that's not true. In fact, the most successful clients I've had are some of the ones who came from the hardest circumstances, the most hardscrabble circumstances. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is it about starting with nothing that makes it a little easier sometimes to make delusional money?
So for context, I actually come from money and business, not just money, but I come from generations of entrepreneur, and my father lost everything during the Asian crisis. So I know this may sound so privileged and entitled, but nothing is harder than being rich and then being poor in Asia, where influence, connection, status is everything. So that's what I want to really lead with. And the question of what makes it quite critical for someone to have nothing, to start from nothing. I don't think it's about starting from nothing. It's the belief that they have nothing to lose.
Yes.
And I think that's the difference, because, like someone like me, it's so easy just to wallow in self-pity and depression and, all of that. And, this happened when I was just, it started when I was just 9. It was the early 90s. So, I stepped in, I stepped up. But I was already making money before that. When you have the blood, you have, you're entrepreneurial anyway. But what I want to say is, usually we see this crazy leaps when the person is just so focused on what they have to gain instead of what they have to lose. So for me, it's not about your starting point. It's where you're operating from. It's not that you have nothing or you have a lot of money. It's more of where your focus is. Is your focus about what you have to lose or what you have to gain? Because, you can have nothing and still focus on, but I have now to lose an identity where I'm the one being helped all the time, for example, that I'm the one who receives subsidy, right? I can also lose the identity that, to blame everybody for my circumstance. And I am saying this as someone who comes from a third world country, who has seen poverty, who's also experienced poverty, even though we're rich. So it's different. And it's not like you just go and have social like social services with benefits, right? I think it's different, of course, in every country. But this is where I want to really emphasize. It's not about the nothingness or the circumstance you're in. It's the state of identity and being that you are operating from. So you can have everything, you can have nothing, you can have something. But if the focus is what will I lose? Let's say, oh my God, today I don't want to lose my pride and ask for help. Or I don't want to lose, what would people say, lose my face. It's, especially in the Asian culture, face is such a very, face meaning, like to be embarrassed, right? I don't want to lose my face and ask for help. Because one thing I can guarantee you, coming from money and working with really like multimillionaires, billionaires across the globe, the richest of the rich. And when I say rich, I don't mean the second, third generation, the one that really holds the money. Okay, not the one that's like just spending the money, but the one making the money.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, nobody there has pride, like pride in an ego way. Like we have pride in an honor way. But if they're the ones who need to mop the floor because their janitors went on a strike, they will. If they're the ones who kind of like need to make the phone calls themselves and close the deal, they will. So it's really that, what do I have to gain versus what do I have to lose mentality.
I love that you put it that way. I've seen the same, and even I'm recognizing myself in that. When I first made a lot of money, it was because I was coming from nothing and had nothing to lose and was like, might as well try it. And then I made a lot of money, and like, what happens when we make a lot of money? All of a sudden we go, I got to keep all this money.
Yes,
And
yes,
not
yes, yes.
only that,
If I make a mistake.
yeah, but it's like the people around you start saying, oh, and at this point I had staff, I was married, right? Like I have all these people around me going, okay, we got to like hold on to the money. And then,
Yes,
so
yes,
I get in this mentality, and then what happens? My business starts to shrink because we're
yes,
not
yes,
taking
yes.
those big risks anymore.
Not only that, because you now, I call this the wealth floor and the wealth ceiling,
Yeah.
right? Like you suddenly accidentally put a wealth ceiling when that should be your wealth floor, right? Like that, because when you start from nothing, or not nothing, when you've started operating from I don't have anything to lose, your wealth standard goes higher and higher because you have everything to gain, right? So with that floor going up, of course your ceiling goes up too, right? And everybody is so focused and obsessed at how do I break out of my ceiling without raising their floor. Of course, you cannot, like just imagine, right? If your ceiling is here, your floor is here, of course it's easier to break out. But if your floor is like basements, that you cannot even capture in the screen, forget it. Like there's no, so it's really increasing that wealth standards and, the standard of decision or the level and depth and the boldness and the courage of decision you were making at, when you have nothing to lose is different from when you have everything to lose, but I'm already here, I shouldn't be do that. Those beliefs of the ego, it's really a lot of that ego, a lot of that, but you start now comparing yourself. But that they did that, so I should do that too. Like unlike when you're in that nothing to lose, everything to gain moment, you are not fighting so hard to keep your base, right? You're fighting hard to raise your base. But when you're in that state of comfort, you're fighting so hard to kind of like protect what you have. And in doing so, you lowered your baseline.
Yeah.
Because, you're recreating the past instead of focusing on the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start to do well, that's when a lot of other people's voices start to come into the mix. Like people see you doing well,
Yes.
and all of a sudden it's, you need to be careful. And then you've got more
Yes.
people to be responsible for, like when you start growing a team and things that you're like, oh, I
Yes.
got to be careful because I don't want to have to lay everybody, like the stakes feel
Yes. Yes.
higher. It's a big theme on this show, like how we keep going forward toward delusional goals in spite of everybody's voices in our ears, So
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest voice is our own self-judgment too. I don't think it's the everybody. It's that part of, but I should have known this. If for me, it's not like when you're starting and you have nothing to lose, the self-judgment isn't that big. Because the only focus you have is it's not even like I need to prove myself.
Yeah.
It's more of this or nothing. This is the baseline. But when you start now becoming much more visible, I think it's not about rich. It's not about success. Because a lot of the clients I've worked with, they reach a certain kind of visibility, not necessarily success. At least not something that they would, say, yes, I'm rich, right? Like it's okay. It's okay, but they're still robbing Peter to pay Paul, that kind of money. So there is that kind of visibility. And now you start judging yourself through the lens of what you think other people will see you. So it's that now gets magnified. So it's not, I don't think it's a lot about what other voices are. It's my voice said in a different voice. And it's like, kind of like it's actually my voice, but I'm just hearing it in her tone.
Well, right. I mean, we can only hear from anybody what we already believe or what we already,
Yes.
perceive, right? And so if I didn't believe that to some extent about myself, I wouldn't even like hear it. Or if I heard it, it would just bounce right off of me. So if I'm internalizing what somebody else says, it's because I believe they might be right, at least on some level,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. So when you get this voice in your head that's like, oh God, maybe not, like I love what you said about we're starting from nothing. And it's almost like, A, I have nothing to lose, but B, it's like, hey, why not give it a shot, right? Like I got nowhere to go, but like either I'm going to stay the same, which I'm already here, or I'm going to give it a shot and maybe something amazing happens. Then we start to build some wealth and we go, oh shit, like I'm very comfortable. Like you said, I want to stay comfortable. I have heard the phrase comfort is the enemy of your greatness. And sometimes I call this concept lukewarm water, because it's like when you're sitting in the bathtub and when you got in, it was nice and hot, right? But then you sit in for a long time and it starts to get a little lukewarm and you're like, this isn't
Yeah.
great. Exactly. But I know when I get out, it's going to be really cold and it's going to suck. And so instead of doing that, I'm just going to sit here while the water gets colder and colder and colder, you know? And I see a lot of the people that have done like, okay, when they come to me, it's like they're sitting in the lukewarm water. Like they know that it's not ideal and they know that they could do better. Their situation could be better, but they're so afraid to get out because they think it's going to be so uncomfortable. And like, yeah, it might be uncomfortable for a little while, but we're going towards something better, right?
So I have a different lens on this.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to the wealth floor and wealth ceiling, right? So I think people think growth is so linear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but it's not. And so we're kind of like looking at, if you think about it, different chapters of our life, right? So maybe when you started from nothing or when you had nothing to lose, okay, that is like one layer. So for example, it's this one. So your base was pretty much very, very
Yeah.
low. And then this is your ceiling, right? So you went into the ceiling. But what people did when they got comfortable, instead of thinking, okay, now this is a different step, right? So they might start a new business or a new offer or something. And it's the same, even if it's like one career or whatever. And what they're doing is thinking they're starting over instead of they're expanding.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people want to grow with the identity of starting. People want to scale with, again, with the identity of either growing, kind of like they're not clear on which phase they are in,
Yeah.
right? So what happens is, that's where I mean that they lower the baseline, because a lot of people, if you ask them, what do you want to make next year? I guarantee you they will tell you what I made this year or a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be what progression is, right? Our focus shouldn't be, I should just make 5% more than what I made last year. Then that's like you just work for someone else.
Right.
That is the increase,
Well,
right?
that's
That's
where it
inflation.
comes from, right? It's like that we're trained to think as in people that are working for other people, and it's like, oh, I do a
Yeah.
good job and I get a raise and I make a little bit more this year than I
Yes.
made last year. Or, a very established business, a big business, maybe you say, okay, well, if we incrementally increased 5 or 10%, that's a great year. But for a small business, we can 3x, 5x, 10x.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you come from, I want a 5x and I want a 10x, that's a different kind of like lens that you come in compared to, I just want to make last year's. So I feel like it's kind of like partly not just comfort, but also the lack of knowledge or lack of discernment of how to set goals and working with the right people, for me. Because a lot of times you hear a lot of people talk about, I want to hit 20. For me, this is a very unconventional take, but I think the worst thing that you can do in your life is to kind of like say things like, I want to get to 20K months. Because for me, the only focus you will be in is 20K months and not how much you want to make at the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're just thinking, I will do everything to do 20K. Instead of thinking, I want this year to be 500,000 or I want this year to be half a quarter million.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you suddenly start seeing things differently. Instead of doing everything to make 20K the ultimate holy grail and never really hitting it, because you're always kind of like obsessing over, how do I get to 20K? And what you want is 250, 300, or 500, or even 1 million. So I feel like it's not just comfort. I because I'm someone who hates inconvenience and I love comfort in my life, I'm not 100% in agreement with that kind of like comfort is the enemy of growth or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more of, it's always that belief of it gets better from here,
Mm-hmm.
not this is as good as it gets. I think
Oh.
it's that, it's again that choice of as good as it gets or better than here. Because for me, I love comfort. I really, really love comfort. I like luxury. And I think because I love my comforts, that's why I focus on my growth,
Yeah.
because I'm not willing to sacrifice my comfort.
Yeah.
That's why I focus on my growth. So I feel like I think if those kinds of general terms, if we're not careful, we internalize that in a very kind of like in a very generalized way instead of a very like you customize or personalize way. The same with, they have nothing, like it's a very broad term that I feel a lot of people, because they're again working with maybe strategists or mentors or coaches who don't have as much of a breadth of experience or varied experience or depth of experience, or they're treating Google and treating, following Gary V, or, like the older people, they're gurus, they're following and they're following what they said. Again, that statement is not generalized, right? Like, but because they're not working with someone or they don't have the right support that can help them personalize that advice into their circumstance, into their specific individualized circumstance, then it's taken out of context.
Yeah, and I don't know about where you are right now in the United States. There's a lot of talk around masculine, feminine energy. Like it feels like everybody's obsessed with the masculine versus the feminine.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of, I'm going to put this in that frame because the masculine energy, or the old, like the bro marketers, as we call them, it's like, yeah, comfort scene of your greatness. You need a cold plunge at 5 a.m. every morning. You need to be, like you need to push harder, harder, harder. And then the feminine frame on that would be like, no, I am going to relax and I'm going to receive more. And the more comfortable I get and the more I can be in my own body and in my own energy, the more I can actually attract or receive. So do you resonate more with the feminine on that?
So I'm Asian.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm Asian, I feel like for us, that's together.
Yeah.
Like
tell us more.
You don't. So it's, again, this is coming from the lens of someone who came from generations of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't study business from books. I started very young at 6 years old,
mm-hmm.
and I've started, like I did business, not just lemonade stand at 6. I was supplying our local grocers with confectionery items that I imported from Thailand.
Really?
So it's not, yeah, because there's a dried fish that we, at that time, we didn't have that way of doing. And we also did like coconut, like Thailand also has coconut. So they have dried coconut chips. Back then, like in the 90s, Philippines didn't have coconut chips. We have coconut oil, but not chips. So I was selling to everybody. So
wait. I gotta hear more about this. Wait, so you're 6 years old. How did you get the coconut?
No, I started at 6.
Yeah.
But that was not 6, maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah.
The chips. So when I started at 6, I had a very clear goal, which is really only 2. Number 1, I want more tokens during the arcade, because my aunt will take us cousins to an arcade every Saturday. And in my age group, my cousins are boys. And boys, when they play in the arcade, they're so slow. Like for me, I'm like, I've always been I always want to win a lot of tickets, that I get excited. I'm as you can see, I'm very passionate. I'm a big feeler. So,
yeah.
Like I like that feeling of, I win a lot of tickets. But all those games are fast games. They're literally like, how the lights would go and you kind of like wait and those kinds, but they're really fast. And the boys, what do they like? They like the games that don't have tickets, and they spend a long time playing the game, like, so I'm always sitting there waiting for everybody to finish. And of course, my cousins, they will give me 1 token each. But again, I will use them on games that are fast. So, they won't give you more. Like 1 each is already big. So I started with like one thing to not feel like a loser. Really, that's all. The one thing not to feel like a loser. So I started selling different things in my room. Back then, at least in Asia, gift giving is a very big culture, especially at that time. Everybody wanted a favor from my dad, so you do it through your kids. So you get a lot. I get a lot of gifts that I don't really like, but you have to be nice and you say thank you. So it's just there. I've been selling it to, my mother's secretary, to her helper. Everybody I see, I sell the stationery.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, because at that time I didn't even know how much they were, right? Like the only focus I told you was arcade tokens. And then later my focus became Barbie dolls and Polly Pockets, because my mother didn't want to buy me too much. It's always, yeah, but didn't you just buy, like those things? And I don't like that. Like I said, I told you I love my comfort. That's what I mean by that. That statement doesn't necessarily apply to everybody. So then, because I love the feeling of never being restricted, so it kind of like turned there, right? So I started with just selling things out of my room, and then one of my older cousins was suggesting me to sell like stationery. Back then it was you write stationery. We used to write, and we have this scented stationery. I don't know if you remember. You buy those
Oh
stationery
yeah.
papers with like envelopes, and then a lot of
Yeah, it
stickers.
was
I
a big
started selling.
deal for a long time.
Yeah, so but just imagine before it was like one pack, six papers, three envelopes, right?
Yeah.
How many do I sell to one person? It's not just one, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody wants different scents, different colors. So I'd sell everything to my classmates, to my teachers, and then also stickers, and then organize. You kind of like expand. I started now selling more and more things that are more stationary items. Then one of my remember I come from entrepreneurial clan. One of my aunts does import supplies like fashion accessories, and this is in the 90s where the right now Hong Kong, back then Hong Kong silver, Korea silver, and China silver are extremely, like, you can see the difference.
Hmm.
Right now China produces really good quality. Back then, no, that it's from China.
Yeah.
So that we import different accessories, from China, and I'd sell them and then resell. I even found someone from the lower batch to sell to the to her mother's hospital, like that. Like I started from there, and then everybody started buying from me. Some days I'll get phone call from my classmate's mom, asking, and because these people, this is where it's the same online, right? You never realize people are watching you,
Right.
but they're talking to you, right? Like,
Yes.
so this classmate never bought anything from me, zero. But apparently he talked about me to his mom. This was like, I don't know, when I was 9 or 10. Yeah, his mom called me and said, I want to buy. My son told me that you're selling this pen that's like very cheap. And for businesses, you need pens, and you want the cheapest because it's used for the office, not really personal, right? Like, and this is back then where it's not computerized, so everything
Yeah.
is handwritten. So she'd buy like boxes of pens from me because she couldn't believe the price that I get, something like that. So then I had an opportunity because one of my aunts was so actually one of my aunts sold me first this fish, the dried fish that's like packed. I don't know what it's called in English, but it's fish. It's a small fish. It's dried. When you eat it, it's healthier. And I first bought from her, and then I resold. And then one of my other aunts saw that and said, I can buy it from Thailand. I know where she's buying it. So you just pay for the forwarder. There's a lot of like things. So then, but she said you need to meet the minimum quantities. It's like 1 box or 2 boxes. I don't know. So I started now importing, but because I have now a lot of stock that come and that will tie up my cash flow, I started supplying the local grocery store. This is again back then when compliance is not like now. Compliance now, you have triplicate of everything. But back then, you walk to a grocery store, you ask if you can speak to the owner, and you say, uncle or auntie, is it okay? My aunt, I just imported this from Thailand. Can I supply you? I can give you 2 weeks terms, and this is my price. Other places they sell this. This is my price. Just like that. So you start. So again, this like my experience in business and these, of course, it evolves over the years, right? That I'm just sharing with you. That's how I started, and
I love it.
all of this feminine and masculine conversation, I actually did the power up, and I shared the 3 identity pieces of what makes a millionaire and what makes a billionaire and what creates generational wealth. And one of the biggest piece there is nobody in my culture, at least my subculture or the community I come from and I belong to, nobody will expect you to be enough for anything. Like you can be not enough and still make money, right? So I feel like all this talk about masculine and feminine, for me, it's too confusing because I feel like you get lost in, am I being in my masculine, am I being in my feminine, etc., etc., etc. But I can tell you when I was 6 and you're making money, right? You just need very basic things. Number one, you need to know how to add and subtract.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that what you're it's very simple, right? That
Yeah.
what you make, what you sell is more than your expense. It's a very simple calculation, right? Then you need to make sure that your product is depending on the product as you grow older, right? Like if you want to charge high, you need to make sure you can back it up. So either it's the way you talk about it, it's your connection, whatever. If you want to charge low, then you make sure you make money from bulk. Again,
Yeah.
it's like basic math. But to be honest, like I've seen people and even entrepreneurs who cannot do basic math. I'm sorry. Like when I say basic math, it's really 1 + 1 =
Yeah.
2. It's really, and for me, if you do not know this, it's not that you have poor money mindset or poor self-worth because you do not know basic math. That's ridiculous. It's like saying I have poor self-worth because I cannot speak French. No, for me, this is like I feel like this is a this concept around, it's not about no, it's about numbers because this is business, but it cannot be all about numbers. That's why I'm saying all these general topics, they limit you without you knowing it because you now get lost in the process instead of one leading with your gut. It's always gut, right? Like that's it. If you're How do I know which of my products will sell? All my relatives are always surprised by how good I was at choosing my product because not all products can sell, right? I can be very good and I can import the wrong product and lose money on it
No.
and lose all that capital. Especially when you have perishable, you have a very limited shelf life. You just imagine it has to come on the boat, and then on the customs. How long does it take? It's not like now where everything is faster. Back then, it was from the time you make an order to the time it arrives to you. Maybe that's already 1 month, and in 1 month time, your shelf life already cut by half. So just imagine the how fast you need to move. So for me, like number one, you have your gut. You need to follow it. Number two, you need to ask for help. Very important. You need to ask for help. Number three, you need to learn how to speak the language. That's it. Like it's very simple, right? That when I say speak the language, you need to know exactly how they talk. Otherwise, you cannot close. It's the same with clients. It's the same with suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, if you go there and ask for a better deal without using the words they're familiar with, forget it, you won't get the deal, like just like that. Then fourth one, of course, you need some kind of system, right? Whatever that system looks like, however simple that system looks like, you need the system because you cannot track everything in your mind. How do you, especially when you're dealing with like back then when I was importing, you have currency exchange, how many rates, how much you need to pay, and the retail price, what is your margin? So for me, it's, at least in my culture, you need both the masculine and the feminine, and the balance of it depends on you. Like nobody can tell you you're doing it wrong or you're doing it right. You need to be so connected, I guess, with yourself and of course with God in your community. You need to be so tapped into it that you know exactly if you need to push and you need to rest, because we all know pushing doesn't always work, but also pulling back doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of dance that it's a rhythm, and it's really mastering that rhythm.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then where does the magic come in? Because we're talking about, okay, you need to know math, you got to have your systems, you got to understand, what's going on with business. I agree. I'm a business coach. And
Yes.
where does the magic come in? Because sometimes when we see people get into the right vibration, because I'm also a woo-woo person, right? Sometimes, and I've had this happen to myself, you have no idea where that money's going to come from. You're freaked out, you got bills due on Friday, it's Thursday at midnight, whatever, and out of the sky falls the amount of money that you needed in a very unexpected way. So how do you account for that? Or do you talk about those kinds of things in your work?
Yes, I'm Asian. So for us, spirituality is part of business. No, really, like for us, like entrepreneurship is the biggest manifestation of spirituality. Because with
Mm.
entrepreneurship, you help people's lives, their livelihoods, you create a community. That's the perfect manifestation. And all I can say is being in the right frequency, being in all of that, at the end of the day, it is trusting God.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah.
You need to remember you are not God. You can call it God, you cannot call it universe, whatever. That's why I said in my situation, we don't believe you need to be enough. But in the West, in the personal development space, if you look at the best memes that get viral, it's always around enough. You are worthy enough,
Yeah.
you're smart enough,
Yeah.
but saying that is the same as saying you need to be enough. There's a subtext, there's a sub-layer of you need to be enough.
Mhm.
But for us, you don't need to be enough. That's why you have God.
Yeah, you're never going to be
Like,
enough. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, right? Like, you have God. So being in that frequency, and I use those words too, but I make it more practical and more Asian style of simplicity, where being in the frequency is simply, number one, is this what I want? And you have to be firm in that.
Yeah.
Number two, you cannot be kind of like split into this, maybe that. We all know a confused energy doesn't manifest,
Right.
right? That's very simple. Number three, very important, is at the end of the day, you need to focus on what you need to gain. Because at that moment, when you do not know where the money is going to come from, you are not thinking anymore what you have to lose. You're just focused on what you have to gain. So at every moment, you're more surrendered, and you're more like, how do you call it? Your guard is more, your guard is more down. What
Yeah.
do you call that?
Yeah.
You're more loose. You're more,
Yeah,
you're
you're
not
open.
as,
Yeah.
you're more open.
Yeah.
Yes, you're more open. So because you're more open and your guards aren't up, then the idea that's just, sometimes the idea is the simplest one just in front of you.
Yeah.
And you saw it because you are not being egoistical
Mhm.
about it. Back then, I'm sure before that you already know the answer, but the mind, kind of like the devil, plays a really good game on confusing us on where we need to go.
Yeah, and it to that first part, just knowing what you want. That sounds so simple, but
But it's not.
it's not or it's simple, but it's not easy, right? Because we have these inner
Yes.
conflicts, and for a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I mean every single person I've ever worked with and myself, there is some kind of a benefit, we call it a secondary benefit, to staying where you are. Right? Whether that is real or not, there's a perceived benefit of safety, of comfort, of whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
The devil, like you said, the devil, like, at least I know how to deal with
Yes.
this. And
Yes.
if I try to like step into a new identity or do something totally different or become somebody totally different, then I'm going to be completely flying blind. And that's really scary. So I'd rather just stay here. Whether that's conscious or unconscious, there's some element in that. Like I said, every single person I've ever worked with, we had to take care of that, and we had to integrate that before we could actually move forward with any kind of strategy, because we can do strategy all day long and someone could see
Yes.
it on paper and say, yeah, that makes total sense. The spreadsheet works, everything works. But I'm afraid to do it. And then we're not moving forward. Right. So we have to get fully
Yeah.
aligned on, not only do I want this, but all of me wants this. And I'm
Yes. Yes.
excited about it. Right.
Yeah. I love what you said about all of me. And I actually spoke about that because business requires all of you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require you to do all things,
Right.
but it requires all of you. You have to be all in. And when I say all in, it doesn't mean that, you go all in thinking, okay, I need to hustle and work 24/7. No. What I say all in is mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
You cannot, like, if your mind says A, your body says B, and your soul says C, you're not all in, because it's, one is A, it's not aligned. So the first work has to be, how can we make sure my mind, body, soul is saying the same thing? And why is it not saying the same thing? When that is clear, then we move, because there the movement is faster.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So step one, I know what I want. I'm all in on what I want. Now talk to us about step two.
I think the step two, when you are all in, meaning mind, body, soul aligned, is very important because you can be all, right? Mind, body, soul aligned. For me, the second thing is to actually, in the popular term right now, it is act as if an embodiment. But I want to simplify it even further. You need to develop the muscle for what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you want to be a speaker, then start speaking,
Right.
even though it's an empty stage, right? You practice and you practice and you practice.
Right.
The problem is, I think a lot of people, they want to create videos that will go viral, but they're not willing to start with one person.
Right.
They're not willing to maybe script. They're not willing to review the film that they just did and look at with a very non-judgmenty thing, to really look at, oh, in that part, I lost my power. Or in this part, I actually said something, why did I say so much more than what I wanted to say? It's really that ability to hold the mirror and kind of like look at that, right? So for me, instead of act as if an embodiment, these are words that everybody's using, but not everybody actually understands. I feel like you need to build a muscle for whatever it is that you want. You want to be a better salesperson? Then start selling.
Yeah.
You want to be better at marketing? Start marketing.
Yeah.
You want to be better at content? Like that. And the most important is to really keep refining your process. Look at the singers. The singers, how many hours do they do a practice on one show? Can you imagine? But they can do it again and again and again because it's part of their identity now. It's really the muscle is there. So even if there's a typhoon, it's raining, they don't have the mic on, they slipped, they still continue the show. And I don't think that's hustling. I think that's where people get, yeah, but isn't that hustling? Or no, this is what you need to do to build the muscle. It's the same as if you want to be great at playing a game, even though it's a video game and everybody plays cell phone games. I know that many people hide that, but they do that every day. That's why they get better and better and better.
Yeah.
So I feel like with the games, we can do it, we can commit to it. But with the thing that we want, we cannot commit to it because we're thinking about stakes being high.
Yeah.
But what if we can bring in the energy of, you know what, this is practice anyway. Let me make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's where the part where I keep saying, if your identity, the first, at least in my world, the first identity piece of being a vacuum or really thinking I'm never enough, don't even work on I need to be enough. If that is not clear, if you cannot empty yourself, you cannot build the muscle. Because all you will obsess over is, am I good enough? Yeah, maybe I'm good enough, but why am I good enough? Oh yeah, this is the affirmation to remind myself that I am enough. But like you cannot get out of that because you're thinking I need to be enough, maybe I'm not enough. Then you go to the muscle and you build that and you integrate that again and again and again. And when we say muscle, it's not just the muscle that you're doing, but also faith, right? Yeah. It's that faith, I think, is a muscle. Trust is a muscle. Yeah. Right? How much you trust. And also the muscle of listening to what is not said when you're pitching yourself, right? Because a lot of times it's not no. It's usually not now, try again, but they didn't say it directly or you didn't hear it directly, right? Like it's that kind of, again, it's a muscle of not rejected, but not an instant yes. So it's another muscle and it's another muscle to fail. I think failing with it's not easy. So I think all of that is develop the muscle.
I completely agree. And it's like we all want to start anything new and just be amazing at it from the beginning. And it's like to be amazing at anything, for the most part, takes practice. I mean, every once in a while, somebody's just a genius at something immediately. But most of us, we need to practice. We need to fall on our face a few times. We need to, and even when you're good, you can get so much better.
Yes, exactly. That's why it cannot be as good as it gets.
Yeah.
It gets better from here.
Yeah, it always gets better from here. And then there's that identity of I am going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to get better, I'm going to try. That's the growth mindset versus like, I sucked or I was embarrassed the first couple of times. And so I'm going to quit. Yeah. I feel like so many people who succeed in a delusional way, so much of it is just like, I didn't quit when everybody else did. Like, that normal exit ramp where everybody else took the exit, I just kept going. And maybe everybody thought I was crazy to do it, but I just kept going. And I tried again and again and again and again when other people said, well, maybe this isn't for me. And they went and did something else, right? Like that grit is so important.
But, again, I feel like that statement can be taken so much out of context because I'm a very firm believer that not everybody is for business.
No.
And I have advice against people because there are different kinds of businesses, right? There's a traditional business. So I believe everybody can make a lot of money, but everybody can run a business. I'm not sure.
Oh no. And please, that's not what I'm trying to say. I've told plenty of people they shouldn't go into business.
yeah. But I feel like it's not, I think it's not about the grit or the pivoting. It's really your focus on what can I gain versus what I lose. Yeah. Because the people that pivoted, the people that also dropped or quit and then turned something out of it, it's your ability to really kind of like, what you said earlier, like shut everything out and just go, what am I gaining here? Right? It's kind of like, will I lose more than I gain? It's always the question of, will I lose more than I gain, right? And if you cannot quantify what you will gain from something, and this is where that's what I mean by numbers. It's not just basic math. It's also, can you actually put into number what you will gain from any opportunity that you will enter in, right? Like in numerical form, if you cannot quantify that well, you will only focus on what you will lose. Because what you will lose, you know the numbers.
Right.
You know the house, how much your house is, but you didn't even think about the next house you will buy.
Right.
Because all you focus on is, this is what I will lose. The $1 million house, the clients that are paying me 100,000. But you're not even thinking of, actually what I want to gain is a $10 million house. Is a client that pays me $1 million.
Right.
Is is three other businesses that I don't need to be there, that I can hire GMs for. So it's really that, I think it's that ability to really immediately say, this is the number for this is the number for this. What do we focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we know what we want. We get fully aligned in all of our parts with that. We put in the reps, we start to practice, we get better, we get stronger, and then step 3 is what?
Alchemizing the limit.
Tell us more.
For me, alchemizing the limit. So this is for me what I feel like what separates experts and non-experts. Do you focus on fixing the problem or turning the problem into gold? This too is completely different. So let me give you an example. In November, last week of November, there was this very famous Japanese pop icon called Ayumi Hamasaki.
Okay.
Ayumi Hamasaki had a show in Shanghai, a concert in Shanghai, and Shanghai just so happened to be so pissed, not Shanghai, but Beijing. Anyway, China was so pissed at Japanese, the female prime minister, of what she said. And you know how China is crazy, huh? This is a really, really, this is kind of like delusional way. But what they did was cancel every Japanese singers, basically every they really showed their strength. So what this lady did, this is where I said fix or turn into gold. What this lady did, of course, I'm sure her team was freaking out,
Losing their
figuring out
minds.
how.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But what she did was that moment where she showed up, did the concert to an empty stadium. So her fans outside was listening to her, right? Was listening. And now, for me, this is really the great part. She was able to build the anticipation for her. For her next show, I'm sure it will be sold out. But more than that, she now became a name on a global stage. Because now people who don't know her, like me, I don't follow anime. She's more famous in the anime world, and I don't follow that. Now I know her. Wow, because I read politics. I read news around politics, and I like reading those things. And economics, all those things. So now I know her. So now she was able to go, she could easily just say, I'm so sorry, my fans.
Yeah.
That
she could have been like,
say it however.
Nothing I can do. Government won't let me.
Yeah. And that's my point I'm sure she did. She fixed the problem. But because she cannot fix it, what do you do after trying everything and you still cannot fix it? So then you alchemize it, and now you do something that is completely crazy, okay? That's alchemizing limits. Now, my specialty, that's why I'm called the money multiplier, is I won't just focus on the limit to alchemize. I will now turn this whatever move into 5 different ways of making money. And actually, I had a clip, but I will run through you. From this move, I will add 5 different revenue streams that will guarantee that we make 10 times more than what she would have made in that concert. That is the move that separates everybody, and at least separates me in my field. Because your ability now to really look at a situation, not just turn it into, okay, this is good. What do you do next? That is a muscle that you develop. And that is because, and how good I am, and this is because of my experience. I cannot, it's not it's a skill you learn throughout the years.
Yeah.
It's not just something that the way I see things, the way I will add this money, the way I can turn 100,000 to 1 million to 10 million. For me, this is experience.
Yeah.
And this is experience in the different kind of like field. So for me, even if you don't have the next parts, if you can alchemize your limits, you're already great. You're already separated from everybody else.
Yes.
Because everybody will focus on the fixing, will focus on maybe it's just my messaging. Maybe I need to change my messaging. Maybe I need a better offer and lower my price, right? And whatever you do, you cannot hit your goal because you're fixing the limit and not alchemizing the limit. So another example, at least in the coaching world, it is the difference between, my God, my offer is not selling. The economy is so bad. Maybe I should give a discount. Maybe I should sell ahead, right? Like that's what you do, right? Pre-sell. Maybe I should, I don't know, package another thing and add another bonus. Alchemizing the limit, at least what I do is, okay, I cannot sell a $10,000 program. How can I sell a 60,000 program, the same program?
Yeah.
That is alchemizing the limit.
Yeah.
That is now, you're not fixing the problem. You're now looking for what is the goal here and how do I turn everything now into a goal?
Well, it makes you think completely differently, right? Like I always call that breaking your brain, right? So if how can I make $1 million? How can I make $1 million? And then all of a sudden I go, how can I make $100 million? I have to think about that problem completely differently.
Differently, yes. Unlike like you're thinking, but I should beat last year's goal.
Yeah.
No.
How do I do something completely
right? Like
different?
It's always, how much can I make? How can I make what I made last year, which a lot of entrepreneurs are doing. That's why they're stalking.
Yeah. And that's where I got caught up when I was, earlier in my career, because it became about the payroll and about making sure everybody still had it done. It was just like, we just have to make a little bit better than we did last year. And then everything goes down.
Yes.
Because you're not taking those risks. We're coming up on time. I could talk to you about all of this for hours and hours. I want to know real quick, for folks who are brand new at this, they want to start making magic, crazy money. They want to multiply the money that they have. What would you tell people as a starting point?
Focus on what you want to gain.
Yeah.
Like literally, when I say focus, I don't mean money, like really, really get so clear on the vision that you want. So maybe it is, I want to make 6 figures. If you're starting, I just want 6 figures because 6 figures mean I pay my rent. Okay. I have enough money to not worry about whether or not I can order appetizer in the restaurant that I'm going to eat at, right? Or enough money means I don't need to feel embarrassed or not show up for a birthday dinner because I know we're going to split the bill.
Yeah.
It's literally getting very, very clear on what those mean for you. And again, it doesn't need to be, I feel like that's where people get lost because you get into this, I have a mansion in my vision board when you don't even know how to pay your rent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying if you are not even connected to your next goal, how can you connect to the bigger goal?
Right.
And I know that because for me, this vision boarding, it works for 1% of the people. And that means, I'm not saying you're not 1%. I'm just saying the chance of you succeeding is lower.
Right.
I love numbers. So I want a bigger chance of me succeeding.
Right.
So if I have a bigger chance of me succeeding by understanding what I have to gain in my next immediate step, maybe it's just the middle goal, it becomes faster to achieve because the ceiling is not that high. You can jump from the floor to the ceiling instead of, your ceiling is so high. How do you jump? Right? Like if you're here in the middle, it's like, okay, this means I have money for this. I can afford to donate to, I don't know, the people that are suffering, my church or whatever. Okay. It also means that I do not need to be in the supermarket and choosing which tissue paper I'm going to buy because one is on sale and one is not.
Yeah.
but I'm just saying these are real problems.
Yeah.
These are real decisions that you can honestly see yourself making. You're not going to create success thinking about if I want to, it would be nice to have a Ferrari and a Tesla when you cannot even pay gas, right? Like, so I'm just saying, like, just the idea of, you know what, if I can just have this $100,000 secured so I can pay gas. I don't need to worry about my heat going out in winter. I don't need to wear socks with holes. I don't need to wear panties with holes. Like these are basic. No, I'm not kidding. These are basic needs. If you can really, really paint that picture, I guarantee you won't even just make 100,000. You will make 300 because you can hear everybody who made money like crazy and they didn't even realize they hit the number. They're like, to be honest, I was just thinking of making, an extra $5,000 a month, but it became 50,000.
Yeah.
Because they were clear on what that means. And of course, what that means increases, right? Of course, as you increase your income, your lifestyle sometimes adapts too. So, the appetizer in, what is that? Chipotle? Chipotle? They have appetizers, right? I don't know. But I'm just saying, maybe at that level, you could just hope for an extra fries, let's say, at McDonald's.
Yeah.
But when you're making a little bit more, you want now to experience ordering appetizer in Nobu, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So then, of course, it's natural that when you were just thinking 100,000, it became 300,000 because you are not focused only on, I want to make six figures. You're more focused on what you want to gain.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that every time I enter a restaurant, I can order the appetizer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my underwear doesn't have holes. And of course, by the time you now start thinking about better underwear, better socks, like I want to make sure that my house don't leak, right? Like maybe in the beginning it was just this house and then you keep progressing. And as you keep anchoring into more real life example, real life, like based on your lifestyle, not based on someone's lifestyle. Like me, I don't care for good coffee, but I care for good wines. So you tell me that, but I will throw out a $3,000 bottle of wine if I hate it. So for me, I cannot base how do you say it? I don't care about buying good coffee. I don't care about buying the coffee from whatever country. I care about buying good wine. Yeah. So for me, I will anchor my desire into the kind of wine that I want to buy, not in the kind of coffee when I don't even care for coffee. I mean, I drink coffee, but I drink cheap coffee.
Right.
I don't care as long as it tastes like coffee. Right? So it's I know it's funny, but it's really that difference of the things that you care about right now. There's nothing wrong with you. They're actually good.
Yeah.
And we use them to anchor into the reality that you will create, right? By saying, you know what? I care about helping people. I care about giving to charity. Then really focus on, you know what? I want to give $20,000 every year. Maybe the next time is 30,000. The next time is 50,000. So it kind of like progresses as you go.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Maria, where can people find you on the internet if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Oh, it's Maria Kathleen Tan, Maria, very easy. But Kathleen is spelled Kathlyn, Tan, TAN.
.com?
No, that's at Maria for IG. For my website, it's tan.com.
So find Maria if you want to know more about this. Maria, thank you so much for being on with us today. It was a pleasure to have you. And everybody else, we'll see you next time.